Welcome to another episode of Between the Cracks, a podcast where we do behind-the-scenes conversations about the tea industry. Today, I'm joined by my lovely partner,
Derek from Favorite Tea. Hello, hello.
Hey, buddy. Hey, we did this like a week ago.
Yeah, it feels good getting back into it, huh?
Yeah. Actually, I just got finished listening to your Qingming episode on tea soup right before we actually got on.
Oh, man. Podcast after podcast, huh?
Yeah, podcastception. It's weird. Every time I listen to a podcast, it feels like we have a conversation for an hour, but I don't get to talk back.
I really like that feeling, and I hear that a lot, and it makes me feel really good. The problem is that, and it's not really a big problem, but people will message me like we're old friends, and I've never talked to them in my life, and they're like, "Hey, Derek," and I'm like, "This feels really intimate. I like it."
Yeah.
But
are they hitting on me? Are we friends? What is this?
It's the parasocial relationships. It's really cool, and it really. It's validating for me where it's like it's coming across like my personality, my mindset, my attitudes, and then also it's getting traction, getting reception. So it all feels very good.
Yeah. Speaking of feeling very good, this tea that I'm drinking right now feels very good. Ooh, what you got there?
Oh no, it's gonna fall out. I have some Bang Dong.
Oh, you got some Bang Dong. Me too. I have last year's your cake actually. Magic Drought is what I'm sipping on. Yeah.
I'm drinking on some unreleased stuff. This is the New Year's New York City tap water. No one even knows. I think you're the only one who's seen this label.
That art is sick. I'm not going to lie. I think I like the first art, like before you went and changed it, but it's so cool. I love the whole style of that cake. It was just so sweet.
Digital collage photos of New York in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
Super cool. So in the warehouse, part of the reason that we're talking about tea today is we didn't know until about 5 minutes ago. Our tea is finally on the way to me. Just got released from customs. It will be here within the week. So we've had a lot of drops. Yeah. Fingers crossed, assuming something doesn't happen on the way. But we had, what do we have? We had the Yue Chao Dragon Breath drop 3 weeks ago. We had the mystery box drop today, which was nuts. I literally wasn't able to package all of them. I think we had 50 or 60 of them in less than 24 hours, like total.
Yeah, that was crazy. And another thing about that is like a lot of times with our drops, it's limited by, we have 10 Yue Chao Gaiwans. We have 15 Jiangyan Chao teapots. With a mystery box, it's essentially unlimited. Like it's like if we run out of unreleased backstock, we can just start pulling stuff off the shelves. And what's the theory behind it? You want to give extra value than people are actually paying, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, like so all of our lovely teaware gets stored in these 18-quart containers. These are really expensive pots. I'm going to put these down now.
Mild anxiety on my end. Seeing Dart do that. It's like your last YouTube video when you're just like holding the camera with the box on it.
Yeah,
like, hey guys, don't tell Derek I'm doing this.
So I didn't break my camera, but the next day I did break one of my Yue Chao Gaiwans. I chipped the rim of one of them trying to do something very similar. I found a better way to do it, but I digress. Anyway, so all of our teaware gets held in these 18-quart plastic containers, and basically I had four, actually there was more when we actually went through and looked. There were 6 of them beforehand of just teaware that for whatever reason, it just doesn't make the cut anymore.
It's a really cool idea. Mystery boxes always work. People ask me for mystery boxes on tea. Yeah. But it's like, for me, it almost feels like a lot of work, right? I mean, you spent a lot of time balancing those boxes, making sure that everyone gets something that's exciting and interesting. Yeah. And for me, I'm just like, I could sit back and just like fill orders that people actually want, or I could kind of think and curate specifically what I think people would find interesting. And so there's a lot of work that's involved in that. But it is something that we've been thinking about for a long time, like years, the mystery boxes.
Yeah. I mean, since we basically had the first kind of products that were like, okay, these don't really fit in one of the boxes. Yeah, one of the styles. But we finally had enough where I feel like I had enough pieces where I could pull different ones together. I'm looking at them right now. That's why I'm looking off screen over here. Where I could put like this Gaiwan with this pot or this pot with these cups. And we had enough where I could start pairing them together in this way that made sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mystery boxes are always exciting, I think. And a lot of times, like the goal here is that, you're getting more value than you paid. Even if it's something that's not on our website, even if it's something that we're not selling now. as Dart said, it's like things that just for whatever reason don't fit the feeling.
Yep.
We talk a whole lot about the brand Tao Teaware, and we have 2 meetings a day, or 2 meetings a week,
Yeah.
each one like several hours, and we're just talking about like what makes sense to us. As
Yep.
a result, a lot of stuff just falls out of our fashion, falls out of our favor, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like that chicken cup, yeah, we can wait on that. We can get another style of chicken cup, maybe a hand painted artist, maybe
Yep.
a cool glaze or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. And kind of last thing on that before we get into our main topic, which is talking about some tea and tea times today. We have some things on the website right now that are sold out, but Derek and I haven't actually confirmed if we're going to get them back in. And so we will do that in the next couple weeks. It's been on my radar. People have been mentioning like, hey, when is this going to come back in stock? And some of it I don't think is. The way that we order things, we only get, between 20 and 50 of something. And so we do have rotating stock a lot. Some of it we will bring back, some of it we won't. And so anyway, if you're on our website and you see something that's sold out, it's not a guarantee that we'll bring it back in stock, but I will promise you that Derek and I will go through those in the next couple of weeks to get everything that we won't carry again off or move to an archive or something like that, so that there's not a misconception that that's going to be back in stock at some point.
But also the reason that they're still on the website marked as sold out is because if you want them back, fill in that notify me when it comes back in stock, because that's our metric for what's important. What do people like? What do people not like? This one has 0 requests. We're probably not going to carry that again. So if there's something you're really desperate about, go in there and click that message me when it comes back in stock.
It's funny because I did not know what your podcast episode is going to be about, and that you were going to be talking about tea times in a very specific 1 week, in April, that just everything revolves around for spring tea. But I think one of the things that I didn't really understand was how time-based all the tea types were. And I think that would be just a cool topic to talk about for today, as we have our teas finally getting here. Yay. But I don't know if everyone knows. Like, I think that the concept of like Mingqian only being for like really specific green teas. And if you're asking for it in other cases, it doesn't really make sense and things like that. I wonder if there are more things that have come up that maybe you didn't get to in that episode, or even that I can just ask you about.
Yeah, I mean, like the time map of tea in China is very detailed, very intricate, and kind of like a trade secret. Not quite a trade secret, but one that the more you realize, the more it's like, I feel like personally there's a perfect path through China in spring where I could hit every single tea. And I'm dreaming of this perfect run. But it's like it's gonna be so difficult because, like I said, like some windows are incredibly small. Like the Taiping Hokui, that harvest season was 4 days long.
4 days, 5 days, yeah, you said, yeah.
And it's like the Silver Needle in Fuding, like that's 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really have to hit it right, and then some places fluctuate. I remember, this year I went to Yunnan in like April 10th, and they weren't even picking a lot of the teas. Last year, they had already finished by April 10th. And I got by April 10th and everything was already picked. And it's like 1 year to 1 year, it could fluctuate in an entire month's time, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. What about outside of this, kind of beginning of year, March, April, like as we move into summer and we talk about the difference of like summer and spring teas and which teas, because like we've talked a little bit about this, how some teas that are in the fall are meant to be picked in the fall, and other times if you get a summer or late picking, then it's bad. And I don't know if that many people know about the difference between like a winter dance hong versus like a fall dance hong, for example, or I mean really anything, but just the nuance of.
You make a very good point there, and I feel like a lot of people don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, not even for me. So when I'm buying pu'er, if I want the spring teas will cost a lot of money. If I want the autumn teas, they cost half. And so somebody's like, "Oh, it's an autumn shigui." Autumn shigui should be less than the spring small bush shigui. And so it's like, when I'm blending these teas, if I want to use gushu from a really nice region, I'm probably going to be buying the autumn gushu and blending it with the young spring teas. Like that's what I've done with a lot of these cakes. This Bangdong is the exception. This is a pure gushu blend from spring. Bangdong is really affordable, and so I can afford that. And even the Magic Drought, that was half and half of Spring Gushu. But
Mm.
something even like this Shigwe over here, this is the new Shigwe, and this is a 50-50 blend.
Sexy.
Lux. A 50-50 blend of Autumn Gushu and Spring Chaomu.
Is that
And
100 gram though?
this is 100 grams.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So half the size so that it can, yeah.
Yeah, probably like $70 or something like that.
Mhm.
But still, it's like the Autumn Gushu from Shigwe was cheaper than the Spring Chalmu, which it's like a lot of people I think don't realize
Mm.
that. You can get young tree spring tea for more expensive than old tree in autumn. Anyways, as Dart mentioned, there are some teas that are only picked in autumn, some teas that are only picked in spring. But what Dart kind of didn't realize is summer teas should not exist. There's no good tea in summer. Like
Yeah.
I'll put my hand on the book and say that. Like
What
like
about
in
age? What about age? Because I feel like it's funny because I was just talking about Jonah. So Jonah owns Bitterleaf, right, with Kumi, and they have the Year of series that they do every single year. It's an Iwu pu'er cake. The 357 gram cake is like $38, so super affordable. Like really, what is it, like 13 cents a gram or 16 cents per gram,
yeah.
something like that. And so we actually have something cool coming where I have the full range of, I'm not going to say exactly what, but I have something cool coming from Jonah that's on the way, that we've been working on over the last month or so here. And when we were talking, it was funny because I was telling him, I was like, man, I really just, the more I drink fresh pu'er, I just don't like it. Like, give me 2 years and a little bit of body. Like, I want there to be like a little bit of like meat to the broth, if you will. Like, I want it to soupen up. And it's funny. And then he responded, it was like, oh, that's funny. I really only like fresh stuff. I'm like, really?
He's so wild. Him and Kumi, they're like, yeah, we fast when we do the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
autumn
yeah,
or
yeah.
the spring pu'er, and we drink like the chalmu and drink the gushu and drink the dashu maocha. And I'm like, I need to eat like 3 meals if I'm going to drink fresh maocha.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, if you were to kind of give like a blanket statement? Somebody gets their first cake of pu'er, don't know who it's from, don't know who the vendor is. Let's just assume it's not Amazon. Let's assume they got it from a vendor who, like, sourcing in China, lives in China, cares about their teas. What age would you tell them to get if you were to just, like, okay, if you're gonna pick one or pick two maybe to do a side by side tasting? What would you say?
I mean, for me, it's all about what do you want? Like, do you want to learn about pu'er? Because if you do, then buy some fresh single origin stuff.
Hmm.
If you don't really care about learning about pu'er and you just want an experience, then yeah, if you can find some age stuff that's affordable. For me, I really like the stuff that's about 7 years old.
Hmm.
And so, how long ago would that be? That'd be like 2000,
2016 or
2016,
seven?
yeah,
Yeah.
2016, 2017. I think you
Yeah.
could find a really nice affordable cake that's starting to get some of this age to it.
Yeah.
Really around that time, I feel like some of the smokiness changes into like the camphor aroma, so you get a
Hmm.
little bit of this like really nice pine incense kind of taste, and the soup gets a little darker, but still
Hmm.
not super dark. But
Hmm.
really, if you do want to learn about pu'er, just do
Hmm.
the fresh stuff, do single origin, and then from there start moving backwards in time.
Yeah. Like this what we're drinking, so I'm drinking the Magic Drought, which you said is a blend, but it's a blend of
The
the
same
same
terroir.
tea, same
Yeah.
terroir, right? Just
The magic drought is both spring, just
oh,
half gushu, half chalmu.
my bad, my bad. Okay, okay. So half Gushu, half Shamu. This I feel like is one of the driest teas that I've ever had.
It's mineral rich, yeah. And
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mineral just
Tannic,
it
tannic dry. Yeah, yeah, like
yeah.
that kind of mineral. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the tea they call it yancha. Yancha is like rock tea, which is
Yeah,
also like that's what they call like the wui yancha, the oolong teas.
yeah, yeah.
And this is I had to tell the farmers, I was like, yancha is the name of an oolong tea in Fujian. And they're like, really? That's interesting. I've never heard of that. And then I'm like trying to be like, Rogui, Da Hong Pao, Shui Shan. They're like, oh yeah, Da Hong Pao. Okay, so this is Da Hong Pao, and I'm like, no, this is your pu'er. But yancha, this terminology, yancha could
Yeah.
also be, an oolong tea. And
Hmm.
anyways, they call it yancha because it's so mineral rich. Because yancha means
Yeah.
rock tea, and
Right.
so it's really, really sandy mineral soil. And so, as Dart says,
Yeah.
when you drink it, it does feel really dry.
But it's like it's different because and it's funny that like that they say that or that you're talking about that with the farmers because I feel like dance songs and this have they're both minerally they both have the minerality to them but in a different way. Like dance song tastes more like metallic almost.
Hmm.
Like it's not like you said
Yeah.
soil and sand and I were like and we're talking about not flavor, texture, feel like I guess a little bit of taste too, but
I think the difference between the dance song and the pu'er is the dance song gets that charcoal bake, that charcoal
yeah.
roast. And that charcoal roast imparts a lot of a different structure of minerality to it. But there should
Yeah.
be some innate minerality. Like if you try some of Wen Sitong's teas, he doesn't do a
Mhm.
really heavy charcoal bake, and he really relies more on the actual minerality of the wudong teas themselves. Right?
So can I put you on the spot?
Do it.
Do you remember the taste of our Sheng and Shou from last year in Linsang?
The sheng, yes. The show, no.
Okay, that's so unfortunate. There's so many people, and I have one of our tea houses that bought teaware from us, who's asking about the show. They're like, "This is like one of the best show pours that I've had in a long time. Are you gonna have it like again?" And I was about to respond to her, and that was what I thought. I thought the sheng you remembered, the show you didn't. And I don't have any coins. I don't have anything. I can't send it back to you. I can't try it. I can't taste test it. I remember how mild it was, and I remember it's been one
Yeah.
of the most enjoyable young show pours that I've had because I don't like. Sometimes I feel like they're just overdone, like it's just too much.
You're making me a little thumbs down. You're making me
I'm
a little
turning
nervous here.
turning
Making
my
me a little
reactions
nervous
off.
here because I had Lanje, who we get the
Hmm.
show from last
Yeah.
year. I
Hmm.
had her send me some samples, and I drank through the samples. And this
Hmm.
is me not knowing what we carried last year, really not remembering. And then I decided I was like, I really like the flavor of this show pour. Press
Hmm.
this one. And so the tea that'll be with you in a week's time, it's all based on my decision, not based
Yeah.
on what we had last year. So that's why I'm like, oh, a lot
So
of pressure.
so I just need you. So this year, take your notes. Make sure you remember. So if people like it, we can get the same tea again, or at least the same flavor profile.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm drinking the pure Gushu blend of this
Hmm.
Bang Dong, which is
Yeah.
interesting because for me, even though like this pure Gushu is affordable, last year I didn't press pure Gushu because I wanted to see how the blend would work.
Hmm.
Because I feel like when I was drinking tea with Lanjie, we were experimenting between pure Gushu blends and then the Chow Mu blends. That's Chow
Hmm.
with a Q.
Ciao. Yeah. Ciao.
And yep. And so the Chow Mu had this really intense flavor in the front of the tongue, the lips, the
Mm.
teeth, like it would tingle my lips and everything, but there was
Hmm.
nothing in the back of the throat.
Mm.
And then the Gushu, it just bypassed the whole front of the mouth and just hits you in the back of the throat, gives you that hui gan, feels really soothing going down. And
Yeah.
so it's like there's got to be a way to get the best of both worlds here. And so that's what I hoped for the Magic Drought. And then for this year, I was just curious. I was like, what if, because people always say they want just pure Gushu. I was like, okay, what if we just did a pure Gushu Bang Dong and see how that holds up with time? So these two cakes,
Cool.
I think, would be a cool comparison. Because, yeah, one is a blend with older trees, one is just pure older trees. Start one of the things that I talked about in the podcast that you just listened to is the Tomb Sweeping Festival,
Yeah.
the Qingmingjie. Do you
Yeah.
remember
Qingmingjie.
Qingmingjie when you were in China?
So, I mean, I remember it existed. I wasn't really, like Alex was the person that I was closest to. So Alex Zhao, he's a really cool guy who basically educated himself, taught himself English, has his own English school, and was working with me. We were writing contracts, hiring foreign teachers for the English school that we worked at. But the thing is, he knew both cultures and he could turn it on and off very easily. And if you ever wanted to talk to him about it, you could talk to him about it, but he didn't just exist as being Chinese only, if that makes sense. So like you said in the podcast, Qingminjie it's not a festival you're going to get invited to or for. And so I never really I knew it existed. I knew when it was happening, but it just never was really impactful in my daily life. And I never really had any exposure to it. Honestly, your stories gave me more exposure than I had for the 3 years that I was living there about Qingminjie.
I asked that because for a lot of people, a lot of foreigners living in China, it's just an extra day off. It's like, oh, it's a long weekend. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I have Monday, Tuesday off as well.
Alex and I just worked.
Oh, yeah. So again, like Qingmingjie, for me, like it's very important for tea, and that's what I mentioned the whole
Yeah.
podcast because it's that green tea should be picked before Qingmingjie. But
Yeah.
then I was looking at that more deeply, and I was like, you know what? This is very specific for certain green teas, like up and down
Hmm.
the Yangtze, the
Yeah. Yeah.
river, like from Hubei down to like the Jiangnan region, like
Hmm.
Suzhou and Hangzhou and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so it's very specific. And I remember people asking, like, oh, is this Qingming or is this pre Qingming? Is this Mingqian tea? And it's like pu'er. And I'm like, pu'er doesn't really, it doesn't matter for
Yeah.
pu'er, really. Like,
Yeah.
I remember, like I said, like last year, like I was in Linsang on April 10th and they still hadn't picked, or that was this year, and they still hadn't
Yeah.
picked their teas in April 10th.
So I have another question related to teaware sourcing. So first of all, when are you going to Qingzhou? Is it July or August? When's the Qingzhou trip?
Yeah, should be summer.
Okay, summer, yeah. So that'll complete the cycle, which means Derek will have been to every single major Chinese teaware region this year, which is nuts in and of itself. But do you find like when you go, do you find there being any time scale or schedule other than like you're not going to go during National Week, obviously, or you're not going to go during like Spring Festival, but like, do you notice any time coordination needed for teaware, or do you feel like no, it doesn't really matter at all?
It's interesting. I think summertime is much better for teaware than
Mm.
wintertime because wintertime things take so long to dry because it gets
Mm.
usually gets wet, it gets cold. Uh,
Oh,
actually, at the same time, sometimes in summer it happens depending on the climate. Like in Chaozhou, they're
humidity.
like in summer
Yeah,
everything's too humid, it doesn't dry. In
yeah,
winter, it dries really fast, but it gets so cold that like you don't want to put your hands in a bucket of cold water because a lot
yeah,
of times in China the studios are just
yeah.
concrete buildings, like
Right,
just
right. It's
husks of buildings that have no air conditioning.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple cultural things there. So the first is the concrete building. So the
Hmm.
first spring festival, we went to Kevin's house. So it was me, Rachel, and Chris. So Rachel is my partner. We were not married at the time. We were married? No, we weren't married at the time yet. She was my fiance. No, we didn't go to Thailand yet. She was my girlfriend. She was my girlfriend that I brought to China. And another foreign teacher who was also a very, very nice guy, just a good old like
Chris,
Southern boy. Yeah, Chris. Um,
strong
yeah, yeah,
Chris,
he was big. He was kind of like your Captain America kind of looking guy, a little, just always
very
clean cut.
very very handsome.
Yeah, very attractive. Yeah,
Shout
and
out shout
so
out to Chris. Hope
shout
you
out
watch.
to Chris. So this is gonna make the story even better.
Text me back.
We go to Kevin's house and we all pack extra clothes because really he says it's gonna be cold. We're like, okay, no problem. Like I'm from Buffalo, I'm used to the cold. Like toss me in a North Face and like I'm fine with it, no problem. Well, we get there and he says he lives in Nantong, which is a small city. Well, he doesn't actually live in Nantong. His family has a concrete house outside of a village outside of Nantong. And so when we get there, we meet everyone. We meet the uncles, we meet like the whole like the 30 houses that he's grown up all around. Everyone knows him, everyone knows. And we have to take, what do we take? Do we have a car or an e-bike? What the heck? How do we I don't even remember how we got to like the little town center area. And it's still like there's still high rises, not high rises, like 4 or 5 stories, so it still has like this Chinese feel in some regards, to like the bigger cities in the outskirts. Anyway, we get there, completely concrete building, no air conditioning, no heating. And when I say completely, I mean like you walk in, the floor is concrete that goes directly into the steps that are concrete. The railing is literally, they're just metal beams. And that's it. Like it's just metal beams. And so it's crazy because there are things that are just hanging out because there's no insulation. There's no room to put some things through the walls and the ceilings and things like that. And it wasn't like third world. Like when I say things are hanging out, it didn't like it was just like completely different. It was just completely concrete. And you don't realize how much insulation plays a factor in any heating until you have no insulation. And then on top of that, do most people turn their heat on in the winter, Derek?
Yeah, of course. Like as soon
Yeah,
as it starts getting cold,
but they're mini splits.
you're supposed to.
Yeah, but they're
You
mini
oh
splits.
you mean in China?
Yeah.
Or is it a normal thing for humans to do when it gets cold? Turn on the heat, like.
Yeah. So I'm asking, in China in the winter, do people turn their heat on?
No, no, you keep your
No.
coats on.
Yeah, you keep your coats on, you leave the heat off. And the thing is, Rachel and I, like, we lived in an apartment, we left our heat on. Our electric bill was absorbent compared to everyone else because we left ours on even when we left, which is a huge thing. When you leave your apartment, all of our Chinese friends be like, turn your heater off, turn
Alex
your air conditioner off.
Alex Chow leaves his on. So
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Um, but so we're in this concrete, building, and we brought these extra clothes. But like again, I'm used to like walking outside in shorts and a North Face. Like I walk out, take my garbage outside in 3 feet of snow, walk back inside. It's 85 degrees and we're good to go.
Yep.
Obviously not the case. And so this is how all of China is, depending on, if you're in the north or the south, or like not having insulation, having these kind of like different times when you would or wouldn't turn on your heat or cooling. They're much more affected by the temperature than I would say we are in America. Like in America, we just kind of blow through it, right? Like that's why people didn't live in the South 100 years ago. We didn't have air conditioning, right?
As you said, like the poured concrete is something you just really have to consider because it's like there are many times in the winter where it's colder inside than it is outside.
100%. Yep.
In winter. And it's like,
Yep.
why is this happening? Even if you turn on your aircon, even if you turn on like the heater and everything, it takes so long for this, these 2 feet of concrete walls to absorb any type of heat. They don't.
Yeah.
And so it's like you said, like that insulation, and a lot of like Chinese construction is just poured concrete. And like you said, it's not third world, it's just totally pragmatic utilitarian. It's brutal. It's brutalism. Like some of the architecture you see here.
Yeah. And I mean, this was an older house, right? This was like a house in a village that's older and would, probably be different now. But the whole kicker of this whole story, so we each brought 3 or 4 outfits thinking, yeah, we'll have to like layer up maybe 2, No. We were there for 5 days. We wore all 4 layers every single day, and Chris slept in the same bed with us so we could get warm enough to go to sleep with my soon-to-be wife. And we had like 3 blankets on top, like the really thick, like almost like Sherpa kind of, like we had like that, and then a comforter in 4 layers, and we're like spoon to spoon to spoon, just trying to like stay warm enough. So like when we're talking about the potters, like, and they're like, the weather seriously affects your ability to go through just like the daily function of like making pottery. Yeah.
And even like Yue Chao, who, Tsinghua graduate, like really like the height of like education for ceramics in China, living in the ceramic capital of China in Jingdezhen, making some incredible stuff. His studio doesn't have a heater. And so like when I visited him in December and I was like, "Hey, can I take some videos?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And then like he goes into the studio, turns on the heater, puts his like boils a kettle of hot water, right? And then is using that as the slop bucket and stuff like that. Just like a steaming bowl of like boiling water. He has the heater next to him, and it's like, as he does it, he's like, my hands are getting colder and colder and colder, and then I lose utility and I can't feel the clay. And it's like, this is why I'm like, it's not. That's the first time I realized, like, okay, maybe December and January is not a good time to visit potters.
Yeah. Crazy. So, again, this has nothing to do with like money or affluence. I thought it was crazy when you went to Yue Chao's studio, because we were picking like basically like he would post, hey, these are the new things that just came out of the kiln, and we would be trying to get those. And so we could only get like 4 to 6 of a thing at a time, and we'd be sold out before like we even did the official drop. And so finally now we actually ordered, I think it was like 50. When you went there, we got 50 Gaiwan, so we actually have enough to like maintain stock and not have it sell out immediately. But we didn't know, like, were you going to be able to get that many? And he has thousands of, I mean, he like this 18 quart thing that I had of the pots that I just showed you, he has ones that are like 4 times that size, full of cups, just hundreds of handmade wood-fired cups that he's just like kiln after kiln, fire after fire.
Like I said, it's pragmatic. Nobody is like, oh, I need insulated walls and a heater in my studio. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you just go into the studio, wear a coat, go into the studio, turn on a fan. Like, yeah, It's a little closer to nature here, and this is why it's like nobody
Yeah,
here like they don't wear shorts. They don't wear short sleeves a lot of times because it's like you mentioned like going out in the snow in Buffalo in shorts. You can do that because when you go back in, your house is warm,
yeah.
right? Here it's like there's no respite from it.
Yeah.
Actually, there is. Have you ever been up north to like Harbin?
No, I want to go so bad for the ice festival. No, I haven't.
Yeah, so they do that ice festival, which it gets so cold outside, like your phone has like 10 minutes of battery life, even if it's fully charged.
So
So
cool.
they'll sell heaters that you slap on the
For your
back of your
phone.
phone to keep the
Perfect.
battery charged.
Love that.
Wild. But it's like they up north, they have central heating.
Mm.
Central heating as in, you turn on an AC unit and it actually heats your apartment and actually
Mhm.
heats your room. And so everyone down south is like, "Oh, I wish I was in Harvey and they have central heating." It's like this luxury that it's not available
But
here.
it's totally like I feel like it's really a holistic thing. Like why do we
That's
have
right.
air conditioning down south? Why do we have, heating in the north? Because we go from 9 to 5, regardless of the weather conditions, regardless of, I mean, America has the least holidays out of any, like, most developed countries in the world, right? Like, in the UK, there's a month that everyone has off a year. In the US, we have 11. There's only 11 national holidays, right? There's only 11 national holidays, and so it's just a holistic thing. Like, the American dream, go conquer it. Well, that conquering and like going like find your own path entails this kind of like opposition to like a more holistic kind of lifestyle, which obviously, again, you live that much closer than I do. But I definitely like, I really love and appreciate the fact that it's like, it's too cold to do the thing today. I'm not doing the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what, like, you are stopped by nature and by force of nature, and I feel like it's humbling and important to go through that and not just go 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 and create this system where you can always go.
Yeah, I mean, it imposes you to slow down,
Yeah.
forces you to slow down. When you mentioned holistic, I was thinking another reason a lot of Chinese people they have air conditioning units in their apartments, but they don't use it.
Mm.
Why is that? It's because of this traditional Chinese medicine ideology where it's unnatural. When
Mm-hmm.
it's summertime and it's hot outside and you're sweating, that's good. That is your
Yeah.
natural state.
Right.
If you're sweating and then suddenly you turn on this cold air machine and it makes you feel like you're not cold, but it's still cold outside and your body is trying to acclimate to the season and you're not letting it, you're going to create sickness. Like you're creating this
Yeah.
imbalance. You're fighting the natural flow. And so
And
that's why it's like, yeah, like in wintertime, just wear more coats, eat more food.
it's funny because I feel like it really does tie back to like this concept of like this pre Qingming and this whole ideology, um, because it's the same thing, right? Like for us, like we're consciously thinking about all this. Chinese people don't go through their day every day and be like, yeah, we intentionally don't turn the air on to do this. It's just part of their living, part of their being. And it's kind of the same thing with the teas, right? Like in the tea areas where it is relevant, they all know. There's no question. But at the same time, if you were to like talk about it with like in Chaozhou or like the Phoenix Mountains, or if you were to talk about it like when you're talking to people like about pu'er, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Just like that guy who was like, "Wait, yancha?
Yancha.
What is wait yancha? This is yancha? Like no 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 no."
Yeah, I think it's one interesting thing there that ties back to the state of time is the Chinese agricultural calendar, the
Yeah
24 2-week terms, the solar terms.
yeah
Because not only are these terms very deeply ingrained in the Chinese consciousness, they're
hmm
also deeply ingrained with the natural world, the natural
yeah
universe. And so they serve
yeah
as like this anchoring point every 2 weeks. There's like right now we just passed, I think it was the little heat, or was it?
mm
So it's like little heat, like, oh, things are going to start getting warmer, right? And then
mm
you have little heat, you have big heat, you have the summer solstice,
mm.
right? And then you have like, some other things. Like it's really cool because it shows you like, oh, in this 2-week term, this is what's happening in the natural world. And
Yeah.
so you're just a little more tapped into the natural universe with these spring tea terms, with the AC units and stuff like that.
It was my favorite thing. I remember you remember Josh, right? So Josh is one of my best friends. We would go on bike rides 15 to 20 hours a week, and we'd practice Chinese together. And his mom's side, his grandma and grandpa were both Chinese. And it's funny because I remember him going to the hospital the one time, and they gave him some sort of holistic medicine remedy for his, I don't remember what he had. And they told him, it's like, yeah, it's gonna take like a week to do anything. And he took it like 1 day or 2 days and was like, this isn't working, I'm done. Like I need something that's gonna like fix the problem immediately, which is like is totally right. It's like that's what we do. Like that's how we treat things in the West. And again, has a Chinese background, but is also somewhat like me, where we're, a little bit impatient, a little bit like let's get to the result. And it's just so all encompassing. Like when you understand the terms and how the natural world changes, it's so much more valuable than just like the four seasons. Four seasons, like, okay, yeah, like hot's coming, cold's coming, we have like things are falling. And then even the festivals, they're related to what's happening in the natural world and that flow of the natural world. And then the 12-year cycles too. I don't know. I think you probably were talking to me about it. The 24, how you were like coming into the 36 soon, right? Like you're coming up
Mm.
on that threshold soon.
Well, this is
And I think,
my year right now. This the year of the
oh right,
dragon. So it's like everyone's like, oh, it's a dangerous year for you, and I'm like, no, it's a year of opportunity. It's a year
mm,
of risk taking,
yeah,
and yeah, as long as you're on the right path, like this is the time of a life where life just like shakes you up and just like
yeah,
challenges you. It's like I'm thinking of like Nietzsche and the philosophy of the hammer, where you just like strike everything with the hammer of doubt, and if it shatters, it's untrue. And so that's like every 12 years this happens. Like,
yeah. Why are we talking about that? Because it couldn't have been. It was mine. Because when we started Tao Teaware, I was coming up on 24,
oh
moving
yeah,
because I was moving back to America. I was coming up on 24 and moving into that period of doing the profession, right? Doing the, coming into like adulthood in that. Anyway, I love the cyclical nature of it and how like just tested and through true it is. Not like minute to minute, but just for staying present, which I struggle with. I struggle with. So
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, a lot of the traditional culture, it's like it's an almanac, right? It tells you how to exist in this world, shows you how humanity and nature should coexist. And you get this, a few different guidebooks and rules and stuff. And one thing about like the story about Josh and the traditional Chinese medicine. Sorry, that Hui Gan's kicking in. But it's like the Chinese medicine focuses on wholeness, on wellness. And so it has a very kind of slow result to it, but it should
yeah,
have longer lasting results. And so
right.
it really comes back to the yin and yang schools of balance and stuff like that, like yin
Mm-hmm.
energies and yang energies, and you need these and forces in balance. And so when you're turning on the AC or you're taking a pill that's a pharmacological, it's it's a shift in the balance. It's totally
Yeah,
unnatural. It's way like, and so I studied like ethnopharmacology in university for a semester, and I really like that, where it's how do we take the natural herbs of this planet, find out what constituents are actually beneficial, like, the aspirin in willow bark, and
mm-hmm.
then take that, extract it, and then multiply it by 1,000 times into a tiny little pill.
Mm.
And it's like okay, like you'd either take willow bark, which has this huge array of different chemical constituents that act on the body, one of them being like this like pain killing, or
Mm.
you can take that pain killing and multiply it by 1,000 and then isolate it individually, and so you're only taking that. And like one
Yeah,
of these,
diluting it.
right?
Yeah,
One of these has a little more wholeness, a little more
yeah.
slow path, and the other is just like this spike of like one single thing that's totally unnatural.
All right. So speaking of the natural cycle, so we've obviously right now we started with green teas first in Sichuan and then moving into kind of our, I don't want to say traditional. I don't know how would you frame the Southern Yangtze green tea? Like what would you call those teas or that?
I think I called it like the cradle of green tea, because even though
Okay.
like a lot of teas probably originated in Sichuan, they
Hmm.
became most popular and rose to their height in like Hangzhou and Suzhou and even Yixing. Yixing used to have some really good green tea and red teas in the time of Liu Yu.
We get into white teas, right? Just after the peak of green teas, right? In the green tea
Not
cradle, right?
not necessarily. I mean, because white teas, the Silver Needle begins mid March. Yeah,
Okay. But they end, I guess they don't necessarily end later either, do they?
they could end as late as
They
like May.
could, yeah. Yeah, whereas
right?
green
Where a
teas,
lot of green tea is over by then.
right? Okay, so then we move into summer when we shouldn't be making any teas, right? And then getting into fall, what do we start to see? Like, why are dance hongs? Why is the processing? Why does it take so long? Why does it take until fall? Why does, like, in some of these other teas that we see in the fall? Why does that happen?
Oh, so Dansong, the harvest time is actually late March
Yeah,
until late April.
yeah,
And so they're usually, right now, they're already picked and processed. Right
yeah.
now, we're just waiting for them to be roasted. And so they need to be roasted and then rested like 3 times.
Hmm.
Roasted for like, 12 to 18 hours and then rested for about a week or 2 weeks. And then it's like, you don't want to rush this because if you rush it, you could really destroy the tea and certain flavors of it. And so it's best to kind of slowly roast the tea, let it rest completely. And honestly, like, what's interesting about getting back to the Chinese medicine about this, there's a lot of traditional Chinese medicine logic in this, where it's like you're putting heat into the tea and then you want to let the heat dissipate.
Let the heat dissipate.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, like, sure, it's like, okay, like you heat the tea and then it cools down to a regular temperature. The heat should be dissipated. There's other things that you're calling heat that you're allowing to dissipate, like that CO2 and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
the chemical changes that happen to the tea.
Yeah.
But that usually takes all summer. One tea that we didn't talk about was the Wu Yan cha. So Wu
Yeah.
Yan cha has a later harvest season than the Dansong.
Hmm.
And so where Dansong usually it finishes by April 20th. You're kind of at the end of the season.
Hmm.
For Wu Yancha, April 20th is like the beginning of the picking season. Then it goes until like mid May, late May. One funny thing about Anshi Tieguanyin, I went there in spring 2019,
Hmm.
and I think I was there like April 10th or something like that. It's like I want to see the spring tea, and everyone's like, Anshi Tieguanyin spring tea sucks. Just come back for the fall. The fall tea is where it's really at. And I was like, that's totally backwards from like everything I've heard, right? And so then, but
Yeah.
then all the farmers in like the wholesale market are like, yeah, the autumn tea's the best tea. I'm like, huh?
Do you have an answer? Have you gotten anything since 2019? Any information to confirm or deny, or any taste to confirm or deny that? No. That's
No, I
crazy. So that's what you were
mean,
talking about in tea soup, because I remember you mentioning you had a Tiaguanian run in, but you never. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
yeah. So that was that loose end where it's like, okay, like I went there in spring, it wasn't the right time. I should come back in autumn, but also
Yeah.
like, and I'm not super excited about
Mm.
the Tieguanyin.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there's a saying in a lot of teas where it's the spring water, autumn fragrance. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the spring should have a better mouthfeel, a better taste in the tea. The autumn tea should be more fragrant, more interesting on the palate and the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Anshi Teguanyin, I think they've kind of just given up on like spring teas being a wonderful tea. And they're just like, what's really important about the Teguanyin is the fragrance.
The fragrance. Yeah. What about tea age pricing?
You mentioned that 357-gram cake for like 30 cents a gram. Is that right?
No, I think it was like 16 cents a gram or 13 cents a gram. Yeah.
What year was that?
All of them.
All
They
of them.
haven't.
Wow.
So
Nice.
yeah. So well, there's only 3 years that are currently available on the website, and that's part of what Joan and I kind of did is I got some of the ones that are not available on the website so that I can go back and do a vertical tasting of them. But if I pull it up, I'm gonna pull it up right here. But yeah, I mean, it fluctuates by like $1 each year.
Are they more expensive the older they are?
So as they currently stand, no, but they only have them going back 3 years on the website. And Jonas said when they do, part of the part of the teas that he shared with me, he said when they are released again, they will be more expensive.
Yep.
But they haven't figured that out, and they don't know when they're going to do it. But they do have it going back all the way to every year except their first year. So they have 8 years going back, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually what I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like I love, we both love white tea. And when people always ask me about like, hey, like what should I get? What should I, whatever. I'm like, first of all, go back and get the oldest white tea you can. I mean, not really. Go back 3 years, go back 5 years, because it's basically the same price. And if it's a, reputable vendor that you trust, I feel like white tea doesn't really change that much. Whereas like, pu'er has all the hype around it and the price change. So I'm very curious from your perspective, like actually being in the industry, seeing the price changes, having to make those decisions, having teas that are now getting into, over 3 years old and things like that. Where do you see pricing like as, for the different tea types?
Let's see. So I saw somebody in China, a tea vendor who buys and sells white tea from from not Panxi, from Guanyang,
Okay.
and they were selling 50 grams of 2015 Silver Needle for about $50, and so that's like
$1
$1
per
a
gram.
gram. Yep,
That's a lot.
and this is the wholesale price, right?
That's
like
the
she's
wholesale
not
price. Okay.
right. So she's
Okay.
a farmer selling it to people that would resell it.
Yeah.
And so like, because like I could get this year's tea for that much, right? Like $1 a gram for like the Silver Needle. I mean, I think that's pretty much what we're selling it at.
Yeah.
And so going back, however many years, and then being like, okay, now that's the wholesale price, and so then the markup would be considerably more.
Yeah.
And I think like the Silver Needle, Chiu told me that he raises the price of his Silver Needle 30% every year.
30%.
And I know like White 2T says like every year they'll do like a sale before they raise the prices.
Yeah.
And so like all the old teas raise. I'm not sure what the percentage on that is. I think one thing for white tea that maybe you're talking about is the fact that Shomei is just consistently cheap. Like it's not an expensive tea. And
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
We sell that 2013 Shomei. I forget how much it is, but it's a 350 gram cake.
Yeah.
And it's very, very cheap.
Yeah.
And just because it is old Shomei, stuff that I didn't press, stuff that I'm not entirely 100% sure of its origin. If it was a cake that I pressed that I had aged that long, I would charge more money for it. But
yeah, that's fair.
Just because I can be sure of the tea quality and the tea origin and all of that. But for white tea, you have that 1 year tea, 3 years medicine, 7 years treasure. And so if you really do want to get into tasting white tea, try something like that. Try something that's very fresh, something with a few years, and then something that's really old. And then you can kind of see like what's the aging trajectory of this. Also, aging white tea is different from aging pu'er because in Fuding, they do essentially anaerobic aging, where they try and cut it off from any type of oxygen, oxidization. They try and cut it off from heat and humidity and store it in a very singular way where no fluctuations in temperature and humidity and air exposure and stuff like that. And so it ages very slowly, very clean. I was talking to Paul about this, and Paul's like, it sounds like they're afraid of it aging.
Right.
So Paul ages all of his teas in Guangzhou, and Guangzhou is hot, humid, aging, right? And so the teas you'll get, the white teas that have been aged by White 2T will be very different from the white teas that are aged by One River Tea, because we do that clean Fuding style aging. He does, I don't want to say dirty Guangzhou, but he does that hot and humid Guangzhou aging, which is similar to like Hong Kong storage, if you guys are familiar with that, because Guangzhou and Hong Kong, same climate, very close together.
All right, Derek. So bullet round. If you were to go through every tea type as you would define them, what would be the best value for people to pick up? Would it be fresh? Would it be 3 years? Would it be 5 years? Like price to value tea ratio. Every tea type. Go.
Every tea type. Tea type is in like white tea, green tea.
Yeah. And if you want to like separate like Yancha versus Dancehong, that's fine. But don't get like
I'd say white tea. I think you could probably get really, really nice aged Chomay for a very affordable price. And this gives you the feeling of like what it tastes like when it's aged. For me though, I really like the fresh tea. And so if you can get some fresh tea, it shouldn't be too expensive. Get some Bai Mudan, really cool stuff. Not a lot of people are pressing the Shomei and the Gongmei. I think I'm one of the few people that are pressing very fresh Shomei Gongmei. Even like the producers are like, do people really drink this? But it tastes really good, really fresh, really vegetal, and still pretty cheap.
Yeah.
For green teas, I would say just get anything Mingho, or as we call it, like Guyu. Like this is like the mid-April pick.
Hmm.
I really like the golden green that we have because it's a tea from Hunan with not a lot of name behind it, not a lot of reputation, but it's fantastic. It doesn't get bitter. It's very buttery, very sweet. Let's see, for oolong teas, I'm kind of at a loss for oolong teas as far as affordability.
Yeah,
There
not
are
really.
some pretty good just basic yanchas you can get, like the Rogueway, the Da Hong Pao. We have found a lot that are really decent at a very affordable price. For
I,
Dansong, I don't like Dansong that's cheap. Like I
yeah,
don't like cheap Dansong. It doesn't do
yeah.
it for me. And so a lot of my Dansongs that I'm sourcing, they're probably $1 a gram or something. For Pu'er, I mean, and this Bang Dong, this Kwashan, these are bangers.
Yeah.
Start with something that's like cheap, affordable, and from a location you can get a lineage on, right?
Mm,
So for me, like Kwashan, no one knows about it. It's just I'm probably the only one who's pressing it, buying it, right? And
okay.
so maybe that wouldn't be a good place to start. Maybe it
Mhm.
would be better to start in a place where it's like Iwu, right? Like, oh, everyone has Iwu. And so you can
Yeah.
taste it. If you like it, then you have a lot of places to go to.
Yeah, yeah, some lateral movement to try and figure out more. Yeah.
Yeah. But that
Cool.
said, like the Kwashan is good Lin Song character. And so if you like the Kwashan, if you like the Bang Dong, you can just check out other Lin Song teas.
It's honestly one of the reasons why I don't really like Moonlight White. I feel like most of the time that I taste it, it just
Mm.
tastes like Yunnan tea that's white, which is like, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to, but like I had Fuding teas from you, and that's where I started with white tea, and I'm just like,
Oh,
I don't
that's
want
good.
Yunnan. I don't
Because
like, I don't. Yeah.
I came the other way. I started with Yunnan whites, and I was like, I don't really like white tea. And then
Oh,
like
really?
I drank, yeah, and then I finally went to Fuding and I drank Fuding tea. It's like, this is beautiful, this is clean, this is fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I don't know if it's. I mean, I know more about the processing now, so I don't know if that's like affecting my
Mm,
subconscious. But like to me, the Fuding teas, it tastes so clean and fresh, and
yeah.
I don't really. There's been a few, Yunnan whites that I'm like, okay, I like this, but like generally when people are like, oh yeah, like give me, like I love this, whatever, Moonlight White from whoever, I'm like, okay, let's try it, and we normally try it. I'm like, yeah, it's okay.
It's
Like when people
decent.
hear I
Yeah.
like white tea, that's what they offer me, and I'm like, yeah, it's
That
okay.
said, like the Yunnan whites are so cheap. Like it's cheaper than the Fuding whites. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah, I think though we do have both of those coming soon. Like I'm currently
Yes.
pressing some white teas from Fuding for us,
Yeah.
for Tao Teaware, for One River Tea, for a few other friends. And
Yeah.
then coming to you next week should be some of the Kwashan white.
This is gonna be interesting because like I just said, I don't normally really like so, but I feel like I like your
You'll
teas. I
like
like
it.
your style. Yeah, I like what you pick. So I'm
Yeah.
very interested to kind of have my mind blown on like, okay, maybe I do like Yunnan whites. I feel like it's like sushi, and I'm gonna talk about this in a reel in
Hmm.
the next couple of days. Like, you can't really say you don't like sushi unless you don't like rice. Like you could have it without fish. You could have it without seaweed. You could have it without fish eggs. You could have it without tempura or spicy sauce or whatever. Like there's if you just like I don't like sushi, it's just like, well, you just probably haven't tried enough sushi. And I kind of feel like that. I feel like that about like yanchas. I feel like most of them make me sick, and I'm like, it's not worth it. Yunnan whites, I kind of feel like that about, and then show pu'er, I kind of feel like they all taste the same. Like I'm just like, yep, whether it's a $15 cake or an $80 cake, I'm like, it just tastes the same to me. And I want someone to prove me wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Alex. Alex was like, "Oh, I don't like pu'er," and then I was like, "Okay, like sit down." I went to yep, I went to Hubei, and I was like, "Alex, let's drink some of this dongguo," and we drank the dongguo, and he's like, "Oh, I usually don't like pu'er, but this one's pretty good." I'm like,
It's
"Okay,
pretty
let's try
good.
this. Let's try the Xiao Sai," and he's like, yeah, maybe I'm not used to drinking such good pu'ers because these are both really good."
Yeah.
I'm like, let's try any other pu'er.
By the way, not the same Alex we were talking about earlier, not Chinese Alex Zhao. We're talking
Yeah,
about Derek's partner in One River Tea who sells
yeah.
pu'er. That's hilarious.
He's,
That's
he
hilarious.
does a lot more of the green tea and the yellow teas and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So
that's
he's
fair.
got his
That's
own
fair.
area of expertise.
For sure. For sure.
Teas,
So we have new teas coming next week. 4 of them from. Are they all from Kwashan or just all from Lean Song?
all from Linsang. We have a Kwashan white. We have a red tea from nearby Kwashan. Ooh, nice.
Got to
We
turn
have
off your
the
reactions.
the Bang Dong again, and then we have the Linsang show pour, which I tasted and it tastes good.
Cool. I can't wait to get it and get my lips drink. Try it. This is the end of the podcast. We love you guys. Bye.